You're not going to believe your eyes. I've never seen David Pakman as somber and blue as we saw him last week as he makes a frantic last plea to his audience against thousands of people unsubscribing from his channel. But that's just the tip of the iceberg because I think it reveals a deeper nexus between government and social media companies that has shifted after the results of this election. You need to take a look at this for yourself because there's so much I need to tell you about it.
I always try to come here and put a positive face on everything, but there is something going on that is terrifying me. When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers compared to where we were last night. Now, the first thing I thought was, is this a glitch? We've been on YouTube for 15 years or something like that, and subscribers always just go up. They just never go down. They go up. Is something wrong with my channel? Is someone attacking my channel? What's going on? So I started texting, and I texted Brian Tyler Cohen, and I texted Tyler Cohen and Brian Cohen and Brian Tyler, all of them. I texted all of them. I texted Jesse Dollemore. I texted Luke Beasley and Farron Cousins and Sam Cedar. And every single one of our channels since last night is hemorrhaging subscribers. What is it that is going on? Here is a graphic. As you can see, subscribers just go up, 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 and they are down. It is not just YouTube subscribers. We are seeing record cancellations of paid memberships. Record cancellations. These are the people that keep the show running.
Now, you could look at this with glee, or you could actually zoom out and see this as a more scary development for much of the left-wing media, because if you remember just a week before the election, even publications like New York Times and the Washington Post have lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers over their refusal to officially endorse Kamala Harris as president. But in the case of David Pakman, losing subscribers and paying members on his YouTube channel feels more like karma than anything else. And you know why? After the massive electoral defeat on November 5th, much of the left-wing media establishment, both on traditional and online medias, made the voter a convenient scapegoat for their loss. And that has awakened a lot of them to the fact that they were largely just being used as a political pawn to be discarded when they are no longer useful. Not just that, I find it incredible that you'd see the same lack of introspection from David Pakman as you do from the larger Democratic Party. He's been wrong every single time, and his audience has been watching closely, all the way from laughing at Tucker Carlson when he said Trump could face an assassination attempt, covering for Joe Biden's mental faculties until the last moment, denying polls that Donald Trump was going to win, and then coming after the Democratic voters when the party eventually lost. It's only so long that people can catch up to the lies and just leave, but the problem is, this is one conclusion and self-reflection that David just refuses to come to, and it results in rationalizations just like this.
So now I understand what is going on. It's terrifying, but it is happening. A lot of people are checking out. I heard anecdotally from a couple dozen people who said, you know, David, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. I'm checking out. I'm out. And the reason that this is terrifying, not only because it puts everybody in left-wing media's livelihoods at stake and at risk, it terrifies me because our instinct is the opposite of what the right does, and we will get crushed if this is the way we respond to a defeat. The right wants us not to exist. The right wants to decimate independent progressive media. And so when I lose 5,000 subscribers and Brian loses thousands and Ring of Fire loses thousands and everybody's losing thousands of subscribers, understand that when the right loses, they get organized, they fund, and they create insanely effective organizations like Turning Point USA, investing in the Daily Wire and building out this huge network of right-wing ideas and influencers. So if you're feeling burnt out, I encourage you, take a break until the inauguration. It's months, okay? Mental health break, do it.
I've got some bad news. If you need a mental health break because you can't stomach the news cycle after an election loss, you've got a much bigger problem than the election. Now, there's some rare voice of truth and sanity I came across from Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, who's just as far left as David Pakman, if not more. He actually went to the heart of the problem with what's driving the left's failure to engage with new voters in the online media space Writing on X, he said, and I quote, "I interviewed and debated nearly a dozen right-wingers before the election. The right wing is 1,000 times more open to talking than these stuck-up Democrats in Washington who hate the idea of talking to someone who isn't in the elites." And that's why the left has lost the fight in online media. Here's left-wing pundit Anand on MSNBC complaining about the fact that the left does not have figures like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan to inspire young men.
When a man is just lost and lonely and not yet radicalized, we don't have the equivalent of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson to move that man in a feminist direction.
And how could they? Online media is vastly different to what they're used to with the traditional and legacy media that the progressive left has dominated for decades. But the same style and strategy doesn't work anymore online. That's true for David Pakman, who's been on YouTube for over a decade, and it's also true for someone like Don Lemon, who's tried to make inroads to the online world straight from CNN and then failed. With David, it seems like he's not even hiding it anymore, that gaslighting his subscribers for leaving is his strategy over truly introspecting why they left in the first place.
When we start canceling the subscriptions, we are in an algorithmic desubscription spiral right now, because when people start unsubscribing on YouTube, YouTube thinks, oh, we probably shouldn't recommend this content because it's generating a lot of unsubscribes. So then the content doesn't get recommended. And then the message doesn't get out. And then next election, they win by even more. So I do understand the instinct, but if we cede ground to them, they crush us everywhere. Now, we're up against a MAGA Supreme Court potentially till 2050. We'll talk about that later. We're up against a completely uninhibited Trump. I actually have an entire chapter in my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, about exactly this. It's the introduction. In the introduction, I explain how it's disgusting to me that when you engage in politics, you can't just find solutions. First, you've got to convince people climate change is even happening. You can't just find solutions because half the country doesn't even accept the science of that. I outline this in the introduction.
Hey, can you read between the lines here? We can't move forward with these solutions because we don't have the consensus. That leaves out one important thing out of the equation, doesn't it? It's that one side of the political spectrum doesn't unilaterally decide what the solution is and what price to pay for it. That's the whole reason that political dialogue exists in the first place, even if some consensus isn't reached. That's exactly the kind of moral high ground that has landed these left-wing media figures in such a bind. But as the audience is finding out they never really had that moral high ground, David himself has taken a lot of heat in the past from some tone-deaf comments that mirror the worst of what he criticizes. For one, here's what he wrote back in 2023 after a shooter attacked a Christian school in Nashville. Quote, "Very surprising that there would be a mass shooting at a Christian school given that lack of prayer is often blamed for these horrible events. Is it possible that they weren't praying enough or correctly despite being a Christian school? That is just a snapshot of the kind of ugliness that can exist on the left wing online, and many of their audience is now starting to realize. Here's another name that you've probably heard of, Destiny, showing a sickening lack of remorse for ridiculing the firefighter Corey Comprator, who passed away on the day of the attack on Donald Trump."
No, I don't think the dialogue is being poisoned because people are being mean, of which conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets shot or whatever. Okay, because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi. They have no problem making fun of anybody else that gets killed in some horrific event. A lot of conservatives were laughing along at a lot of my tweets when I was making fun of Palestinians during my last, year and a half talking about Israel. And some of them laughed when I made fun of Israelis as well. But all of a sudden, Corey is beyond reproach. I think that the issue that I have with X isn't people being mean. It's people that are just lying and contributing to a destruction of the discourse. I think that people can be mean. I think hate speech is fine, whatever you want to do there. But when you have people that are intentionally bad actors that are just destroying the discourse by just flooding it with incorrect stuff that they're not even trying to be correct about, the entire world would be better off if these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again. It's exclusively bad stuff that happens.
And then they wonder why people didn't turn out to vote for them. The fact is, the sands of the American political landscape have shifted, and it began when the left-wing and Democrat voters realized that the people they supported as the good guys aren't really as virtuous as they thought. They're just as corrupt, ideologically captured, and in bed with greedy corporatists as the people they criticize, and that was enough to swing a balance to the right in this election. But let me know in the comments how you view this helpless plea from David Pakman because it's certainly unbecoming of a left-wing creator that supposedly prides himself on having a loyal and genuine audience.